and then I think I fell asleep. I remember the day he told me, while we were playing golf at Istana, that should anything happen to him, he wanted me to look after my mother and my younger brother and sister. I remember the night the children slept on the floor in my parents' bedroom at Temasek House in Kuala Lumpur. Because the house was full of ministers who had come up from Singapore. And every so often my father would get up from bed to make a note about something before lying down to rest again. But obviously he wasn't asleep. And the date was 7th of August, 1965. 2 days before separation. Growing up with my father, living through those years with him, made me what I am. This year is the 50th anniversary of Singapore's independence. We all wanted Mr. Lee to be present with us on August the 9th to celebrate this milestone. More than anybody else, it was he who fought for multiracialism, which ultimately led to our independence as a sovereign republic. It was he who united our nation, built a nation, and made our 50th anniversary worth celebrating. Sadly, it is not to be. But we can feel proud and happy that Mr. Lee lived to see his life work come to fruition. At last year's National Day Parade, when Mr. Lee appeared and waved, and it appeared on the big screen on the floating platform, the crowd gave him the most deafening cheer of the whole parade. Last November, the People's Action Party celebrated its diamond anniversary at the Victoria Concert Hall, where Mr. Lee founded the party 60 years ago. Party members were so happy to see that Mr. Lee could be there, they gave him a rousing, emotional, standing ovation. Those of us who were there will never forget it. St. Paul's Cathedral in London was built by Sir Christopher Wren, a famous architect. He was the architect of the cathedral, and he is buried in the cathedral, which was his masterpiece. There's a Latin epitaph on his grave, and it reads, "Si monumentum requiris circumspice." It means, if you seek his monument, look around you. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew built Singapore. To those who seek Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's monument, Singaporeans can reply proudly, look around you. Now let me continue in Malay and then Mandarin. Saudara-saudari,
fellow Singaporeans, we have lost a leader who had guided us, inspired us, united us, and laid the foundation for our success. This includes the racial harmony that we have been enjoying all this while. It is the result of Mr. Lee's deep commitment to strengthen interracial and interreligious ties among the different races and religions in Singapore, a vision that is also strongly supported by the Malays. Mr. Lee deeply appreciated the solid support of the Malays for his vision and the PAP, especially when Singapore was still part of Malaysia. Without the support of the Malays then, it is highly likely that Singapore today would have turned out differently. So when Singapore gained independence, Mr. Lee was determined to ensure that the minorities have their place in Singapore forever. His commitment in helping the Malay Muslim community to progress was apparent. He laid the foundation for the formation of the Mosque Building Fund so that the community could build mosques in every housing estate through contributions from every working Muslim. Mr. Lee also believed that education is the main key to uplift the Malay community. For this reason, he strongly supported the setting up of the Mendaki Foundation to help needy Malay students and families. While we are saddened by Mr. Lee's departure, let us honor and celebrate his spirit and contributions. Let us continue efforts to develop Singapore, strengthen our multiracial and multi-religious society, and work together as one united people, just as Mr. Lee fought for all his life.
Singapore's development and success were inextricably linked to Mr. Lee's personality and ideals. If Mr. Lee and his colleagues had chosen a different path or did not have the vision and determination to fight for and defend Singapore's independence, Singapore would definitely not be what it is today. Mr. Lee gave his all and worked hard to build Singapore. His motto was, "For Singapore to continue to thrive, we must always be vigilant and never rest on our laurels. We have to apply wisdom and creativity and keep persevering to continually remake Singapore. Then this island state can safeguard its interests, be relevant to the world, and be recognized internationally." Mr. Lee devoted his whole life to serving the nation and realized his lifelong aspiration to build a rugged society and a vibrant nation. In his twilight years, he was heartened to see Singapore's continued stability, prosperity, and growth, even after he had stepped down. A humble and keen learner, Mr. Lee was a model of lifelong learning. In fact, he was attending his regular Mandarin lesson on the very night before he was last admitted to hospital. Mr. Lee was blessed with a happy family and a loving marriage. He and the late Madam Hua Gyok Chu were a loving couple. His 3 children have successful careers and are contributing to society. In his later years, he was fortunate to enjoy his grandchildren's company. While we grieve for the loss of our founding Prime Minister, we are also deeply grateful that he had led Singapore on its remarkable journey, which has now entered its 50th year. As we remember him, let us not forget his vision for Singapore, his love for this country. Let us carry on his perseverance and dedication to continue the Singapore miracle, so that Mr. Lee will not have to worry about his future. May he rest in peace.
I said, the light that has guided us all these years has been extinguished. But that's not quite so. For Mr. Lee's principles and ideals continue to invigorate this government and to guide our people. His life will inspire Singaporeans and others for generations to come. Mr. Lee once said that we intend to see that Singapore will be here 1,000 years from now, and that's your duty and mine. Mr. Lee has done his duty and more. It remains our duty to continue his life's work, to carry the torch forward and keep the flame burning bright. Over the past month, the outpouring of good wishes, prayers, and support from Singaporeans as Mr. Lee lay ill has been overwhelming, and even more so since he passed away on Monday. People of all races, from all walks of life, young and old, here and abroad, have mourned him. Hundreds of thousands queued patiently for hours in the hot sun and through the night to pay respects to him at the Parliament House. I visited the queue on the Padang. Many Singaporeans, not so few non-Singaporeans, who came out of deep respect and a sense of compulsion that here was a man they wanted to do honor to. Many more wrote heartfelt messages and took part in tribute ceremonies at community sites all over the island. Thousands of overseas Singaporeans gathered in our embassies and consulates to remember Mr. Lee. And later in this funeral service, all of us, in this hall, across our island, and in far-flung lands, will observe a minute of silence, say the national pledge, and sing Majulah Singapura together. We have all lost a father. We grieve as one people, one nation. But in our grief, we've displayed the best of Singapore. Ordinary people going to great lengths to distribute refreshments and umbrellas to the crowd and help one another in the queue late into the night. Citizen soldiers, home team officers, cleaners, all working tirelessly round the clock. Our shared sorrow has brought us together and made us stronger and more resolute. We come together not only to mourn, we come together also to rejoice in Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's long and full life and what he has achieved with us, his people, in Singapore. We come together to pledge ourselves to continue building this exceptional country. Let us shape this island nation into one of the great cities in the world, reflecting the ideals he stood for, realizing the dream people who have made Singapore a home and nation. Thank you, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. May you rest in peace.
The President will now deliver his eulogy.